Chapter 8, we talk about the multidimensional arrays. So it is an array with one more or more than one column. So let's look at a column. So for example, if I declare an array scores, let's talk about scores. So double scores. So use the bracket. One bracket is for one dimension array. Equals to new double. And we have to specify the size and instance name. Right. So instance name we did, which is double scores. Sometimes we can put it in front like that. It's all the same. Size. So if I do it 10, so now I want to show you on how it looks like in the memory, right? So it's gonna be index from 0 to 9. So I'm going to say this is an index of my array. 0, 1. Up to 9, this is 0 to 9, and this array name scores. So when we declare that way, we get it something look like this for an array. Like allocate a space in the memory portions. Now when you start student scores, it could be 95, 90, 89. So different students have different scores. Now when we look at this, we pretty much only can store the student scores, right? Now if I want to refer to like student name with the scores, like try to create a table to store data, we pretty much just need to add additional columns, right? Like I said, one array, one dimension, one column. So if I want to insert the second column, so like student name, name of students, right? So David get that scores, Carl, right? Jennifer. So something like that. So if I want to store the score like that, how would we do that, right? How would we declare an array? Then that means we need two-dimensional array, right? 2 dimensions. 2 dimension is what? Rows and columns. Rows and columns, like an Excel table, 2 dimensions. So how do we declare it? So we just need to have another brackets. So this is going to show that this is 2-dimensional arrays, and you specify the same. So now rows, we need 10 rows, 2 columns. So we need to look at, is this rows or is this columns? So if it's 10 rows, 2 columns. So let's test that in the code then. Alright, so we're going to create something like this now for our scores. Now I'm going to create new project. So use IntelliJ here, Java project. Alright, so hit next. So create project form template. So this is going to be multi-dimensional array. Finish. New window. Alright, so now what we're gonna learn, how to declare, right, multi-dimensional arrays, and this is gonna be 2 dimensions. So again, when we look at 2 dimensions, it's just like rows. Like I can have 10 rows, 2 columns, 1 for name, 1 for scores. So I'm going to name an array as, now if I do doubles, that means all the data are double, right? So 2-dimensional arrays with doubles, like could be assignment 1, assignment 2, midterm, right? Final, grades, right? Scores, and you may have different scores, right? Stored into this. So this could be doubles. Some scores here. Okay. So if I do double scores equals to new, and this is 2 dimensionals, double. So we say rows, 10 rows. In this case, double only have what? These are doubles. Name is string. I can't use array in there. So this has to be 0, 1, 2, which is 3. 3 columns, scores, midterm, final. So I'm going to make this more sense like assignments. Scores, right? And midterm score and final scores. So for the students. Now I'm going to show you that we're going to store the scores into an array first. And for the student itself, we can make it as a class that has an array of scores as attributes and student as name, which we will cover in the next unit in chapter 9. So for now, we're going to focus on just this part: assignment, midterm, and final. So how do we store the data? So one way is pretty much just giving the data directly, like at index 0 and 0. We said it's 95. Right? So that's how we access to, this is pretty much your 0 and 0 here. And 0, 1 and 0, 2, right? So 88, 86, and we can keep doing this way, right? For row 0, this is row, next row is row 1, So row 1 pretty much just change this to 1, right? And then you can change the scores. Now what I'm going to do, since I don't want to do too many, I'm going to just create 3 rows. Otherwise, this is just for the purpose of showing, right? So maybe let's do 2 rows. I want to make a difference 2 and 3, and not too many data. So and let's do a little bit different of the score here. So 90, 78, and the dimensions now has to be 2 rows, right? 3 columns. Alright, so now we just initialize that with the values we declare initialize. We gotta print it out, print the contents. So how do we print out? When we do 1 dimension, we can use for each. Now for 2 dimensionals, we're gonna have to use the int I equals to zeros, which we're gonna say row, right? Row less than scores now if I do scores dot length, it would return the length of, it's going to return the length of row. If we want to return the length of columns, so we just do like that, right? So this is going to be rows less than 2. We're going to say row plus plus. Now we also need to loop into, when we get to a row, we have to get into each for the columns. So int columns starting from zeros, column less than scores dot, which we have to specify rows dot length, so we get the size of columns, and column plus plus. Right. Now let's see if we can system.out print the scores for row, and that's how we access the values, right? Now when we finish printing 1 row, we can actually do a new line. Then it's just go to new line, not getting into 1 line. And when we print, let's put some spaces to concatenate with, maybe tab, escape sequence. Alright, so let's run the program and check it out to see if we have something like we expected, like this, right? Alright, so array index outbound exception, line 16. So right click and check on line number. So column we have, so the error is coming because there's no such 2. Because the size is going to be 0 or 1, right? 2 is the length size, but array index just 0 or 1. So we have to specify the row itself, which is the data from each row, and get the length for each. Now after that we run the program. So we get the scores 95, 88, 86, 90, 78, 55. So if I do remove the println to print, it should print by rows like that. Exactly what we expected, 95, 88, 86. And we space with the tab here. And once it's print finished the first row, it's go to the second row.